Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Will and welcome to Copper Jacket TV. So do you remember the optimism at the beginning of the year? After a year and a half of campaign promises, the Republicans got the trifecta. They got the House, they got the Senate, they got the executive, and they got that from us. We were the ones that sent them there with a clear mandate. Well, one of those mandates was to correct infringements on our Second Amendment rights that were created through previous administrations and through the bureaucracy. And at the beginning of the year, it looked like that might actually happen. We had multiple bills introduced in January and February for national reciprocity, national constitutional carry, repeal the NFA, and so many other bills. Well, we haven't really heard much about those bills since then, and I wanted to give you guys an update. What's going on with all that great stuff that was introduced at the beginning of the year to relieve the infringements on our 2A rights? Well, let's talk about it. Now, real quick before we get started, one of the greatest ways that you can support content like this is by clicking on that subscribe button. It's free, it only takes a second, but it really helps us out here quite a bit and it helps us spread our message. So thank you to everybody who subscribes. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. So like I said before, at the beginning of the year, there seemed to be a lot of optimism, and that optimism came because we saw a lot of the bills that we wanted to see passed get introduced early on in the year, and we thought, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to get this stuff done, to roll back some of those Second Amendment infringements that were created under previous administrations, including this one. And so we were hopeful that we would actually see some action because, again, we sent them with a mandate to correct some of those issues with our Second Amendment rights. Well, since then, we've been relegated to reporting on investigations coming from the DOJ, or maybe they back out of a specific lawsuit, or they just kind of hand us crumbs. Nothing major, no major legislation being passed by Congress that then gets signed by the president. One of the first things I want to talk about is going to be H.R. 38. Okay, that was one of the ones that, everybody talked about. People are actually still talking about H.R. 38. That's national reciprocity. Let's take a look at what's going on with national reciprocity since it was introduced. Now, this is directly from the site for Congress, and this will show us all of the actions that have been taken on a given bill. And again, we're looking at H.R. 38. This is national reciprocity. And you can see here that it was introduced on January 3rd of 2025. So right at the beginning of the year, one of the first things that the Republicans introduced was national reciprocity, making it look like that was one of their priorities, right? They were going to fix this particular issue. Even though I had a lot of problems with this bill and it has some holes in it and things that needed to be corrected, it was nice to see that this is one of the things that they wanted to get done. Well, let's go ahead and expand on that and see what's happened to national reciprocity since. And as we do that, you can see that it hasn't moved since March 25th of 2025. So in March, it was sent to the House Judiciary Committee, and that is where it's sat now for nearly 4 months. Now, I myself had some issues with the national reciprocity bill because on one hand, it granted constitutional carry to some people, so you could carry without a permit throughout the entire country, and then other people were forced to have a permit from their home state, but at least that permit would be recognized in all 50 states, but it didn't fix any of the issues dealing with maybe like California and New York and sensitive locations. And so again, I thought there were some holes, there were some gaps that could be filled, and obviously some issues that could be fixed. All of that can be fixed through the amendment process. Amendments can be made to fix that issue. So there's really no excuse why this couldn't be amended to make it a better bill and then pass it through. So with that being said, it kind of leads us into our next bill, another bill that was introduced early on in the year, and that was national constitutional carry, the way that it should be. Recognize and acknowledge that the Second Amendment does not require a permit in any state and doesn't stop you from traveling from one state to another. National constitutional carry, that's the way that it should be, right? Let's take a look at what happened to that. Okay, so here it is right here, H.R. 645, the National Constitutional Carry Act. Again, this was introduced back in January, on January 23rd of 2025. It was referred to the House Committee on the Judiciary on January 3rd, 23rd, 2025, so on the exact same day. And just like national reciprocity, constitutional carry has been sitting in the House Judiciary Committee ever since. So this bill got introduced the same day it goes over to the House Judiciary Committee, and it has not moved since. So both of those are pretty disappointing, right? But what about the next one? This is one that we were all hoping would grow some legs and actually go somewhere, and that was the Repeal the NFA Act. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Okay, so here's H.R. 335, the Repeal the NFA Act. This was introduced by Representative Eric Burleson out of Missouri, and it was introduced on January 13 of 2025. On that same day, it was referred to the House Ways and Means Committee, and it has been there ever since. So these bills are getting referred to committee, and they are not going anywhere else. Again, Repeal the NFA, stuck in committee since January. Now, we got the midterms coming up, and with the midterms, things could change drastically, right? And so there is very little time to act on what's supposed to be a priority. That means that maybe within the first 100 days, you would see some major action taken on these priority types of bills, right? Again, bills that were introduced at the very beginning of the year. But if you take a look down the line at a lot of the bills that were introduced that we've talked about since January, you could see that a majority of them have suffered the same fate. They were introduced at the beginning of the year, they went to some sort of committee, and they've just kind of sat in committee. These are bills that were introduced before this administration was even sworn in. The administration currently, I think, is in office for a little bit over 170 days. A lot of these bills are 190 days, maybe 190 plus days old, and are still sitting in those committees. So again, this is, it's disappointing to say the least, not surprising in some instances, but this is something that people need to make a stink out of. We need to still talk about these bills. It's possible that these bills could be revived. These are bills that have been introduced in previous years, but in those previous administrations, we knew that there was no chance that they would ever get signed. At least we would have a little bit of hope if these bills got passed that they might actually get signed. And so we got to still continue to make a stink about them. What's going on with all of these? And I wanted to share that with you and give you an update on what's going on with those three very important bills and let you know about them. So anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Y'all have a great day.